why are the lights flickering again? And it's like, oh, Claude's playing Pokemon again. Welcome back to another episode of Front End Fire. I'm your host for this week, Jack Harrington, and with me are my esteemed colleagues, as always, TJ Ventole.
Hey, everybody.
And Paige Eateringhouse.
Hello, everyone.
Wow, we're on multiple platforms now. We are on podcast. We're on YouTube. I had to dress in a nice shirt today. This is great. And we got... by the time that people see this, we easily have 100 subscribers, and we had 92 in the first day. It took me months to get 100. My daughter was like, you finally reached 100, All my friends subscribed. Now we're at 100 in the first day.
Yeah.
Amazing. Incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was in response to our listener feedback. So thanks to everybody who filled out the survey. I was surprised how overwhelmingly most people said that they were interested in YouTube. So we were kind of on the fence about it. But after seeing that, it kind of was the forcing function to get us to put it out there.
So please fill in that survey if you haven't already. And of course, like and subscribe the videos on the YouTube channel. I get to say that now. That's great. And of course, you subscribe to our Front End Fire podcast and join up on our Discord server in the Front End Fire channel there. You can tell us all your good things. Give us some ideas for news that you think is really interesting. But yeah, in the meantime, let's talk about news.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay, Paige, what do you got?
We have another survey that is out because we can't go without having surveys to take or survey results to talk about. So this survey is, of course, the AI survey. State of AI 2025. I took it this morning. It is actually pretty quick. It's maybe 15, 20 minutes if you're really thinking about your responses. But it's basically just what kind of tools are you using in AI? What AI platforms have you tried, like Void or V0 or Tab 9, or what AI models do you like? Do you like Mistral? Have you tried DeepSeek? Do you like ChatGPT? So it's just all the questions about, what's good about it? What have you tried? What are you interested or not interested in trying if you haven't actually tried these different things? There were some questions about what are the pain points or the biggest pain points that you've seen with AI so far, which is, things like lack of context, dumb answers, hallucinations. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting results just because I'm eager to hear what other people are seeing who are developer focused, because that's the thing. It's kind of different from maybe a more generic AI survey, is that it is focusing on people who use AI for coding as well as trying to build things with AI or stuff like that. So
that's cool. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
It's also done by the same people that do the State of JS survey, so it'll look fairly familiar. And I also feel like because of that, it's going to attract a front end audience to do it too. So I think it should be especially relevant to us.
So what is the state of AI between the three of us? Like, what are we using for IDEs? What's the current thinking?
So I am still using VS Code, but with GitHub Copilot.
Okay.
Because our company pays for it, so we've got the GitHub Copilot subscription. I still use ChatGPT fairly often. I'll just paste code into it and ask it to give me suggestions or, enhance code that I've been working on. And we have at work also a subscription for Devin, which is a coding assistant that you use through Slack. And Devin's interesting. TJ and I have talked about it a little bit in the past. Devin is a very eager junior developer, so he can get 70-80% of the way there, and then you usually kind of have to finish it off for him. Although I just saw that Devin has now upgraded to use Claude Sonnet 3.7, so might be worth another try to see if Devin has gotten significantly better since that upgrade of models.
Yeah, as long as Claude actually has the bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
All right, how about you, TJ?
Similar boat as Paige, that GitHub Copilot mostly because it's work provided, but I've done a lot of exploring lately with Windsurf and Cursor just to try them out.
What's your take?
I I just went through the free trials of both of them.
Okay.
And to me, it's like a marginally better experience than VS Code and GitHub Copilot. I find that the way that they do the UX, just little things like how they show suggestions, how they show changes when they do make changes, how you can accept them, how like cursor, when you get an error in the terminal, you can send that error straight to the AI pane. It's a bunch of little things like that I like. But it's not enough to make me say like, oh, I want an additional cursor subscription on top of my already paid VS Code and GitHub Copilot subscription. But it's enough, though, that I'm keeping it installed. I'm opening it largely as part of this podcast, right? When there's new versions, we can test them out and try them out and see, because they are doing some really, really interesting things. And if you haven't tried it before and you're listening to this, both Cursor and Windsurf have free trials that are reasonably generous. So it's definitely worth, if you haven't installed them and used them before, just give them a go.
Yeah. Well, speaking personally, I was on Windsurf for, I would say, probably 3-4 weeks there. Before that, VS Code. And now I've kind of transitioned back to Cursor. I just found that Cursor was a little more stable in the features that I was using. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing I've noticed, is that both Cursor and Windsurf, the number of weird errors I get is significantly higher than just VS Code alone with GitHub Copilot. That reliably works, whereas these other environments mostly work.
Yeah.
But occasionally you get some weird error, some weird crash. And
I was on JS Jabber with Dan Shapir and Chuck yesterday, and we were talking about this. And one thing I was wondering about, like, why are these apps, like, they could legitimately just be plugins. Why do they have to be? I think it's just funding. I think you got your investors, and your investors like, I'm not paying $150 million for a plugin.
Sure.
Kind of yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's kind of like Tray AI that we were talking about last week. It's another fork off of VS Code with AI enhancements and capabilities. So
at least they like try to polish the UI on that one.
True.
I think though they talk about, though, part of the reason they exist is with an extension you can only do so much. Like VS Code doesn't give you the ability to do everything. Just like little things like sending an error from the terminal to your pane. I doubt you could do that through just a VS Code extension. You probably need the full ability to totally customize the UI to be AI oriented. That's the argument they would make. And I think there's definitely some truth to that, but is it worth the effort that it goes into making a fork to make those improvements? That's something we're kind of figuring out. The market's going to kind of decide on that.
Or is that a capability they should PR back into the VS Code main branch, and then everybody can make use of it?
Oh, but there's no money in that.
That would be
like a VC.
That would be community building. That's no good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, GitHub, it's not like GitHub has not done that before. People come out with great extensions and then they just build it into the main system. So we might very well see those kinds of features in the future in VS Code releases.
Well, and also it's not like VS Code at this point is Microsoft. So there's less of like a feel-good community thing, because you are contributing. Their AI features are a business. GitHub Copilot takes a lot of money to run. It takes in money. So in a way, you'd be donating free help to Microsoft kind of at this point, versus contributing just wholly to the open source community. I'm just saying that it's more complicated.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Pros and cons both directions. All right. So TJ, what do you got this week?
Well, Paige mentioned Claude Sonnet 3.7, and I thought we'd talk about that a little bit. And Claude Code. So this more than most AI models directly impacts the sort of things that we do. So first of all, just to take a step back, Claude, if you're not familiar, popular LLM made by a company called Anthropic. It's become popular in coding circles because I think we as an industry have found that it's kind of one of the better models for doing coding related tasks. So a lot of the tools that you might use in Cursor and Windsurf, oftentimes those are now defaulting to Claude 3.5. And so this 3.7 model is kind of the logical update to it. And what they've changed with it is that Claude 3.7 has two different modes of thinking, what they call a standard mode and an extended thinking mode. And in extended thinking mode, the model, quote, self-reflects before answering, which improves its performance on math, physics, instruction following, coding, and many other tasks. So essentially, it's one model that has different modes. The thinking mode acts more like O1, where it can do some additional reasoning, but it's also slower and more expensive as well. And whether that's worth it to you kind of depends on the scenario. And I tried it out this week a little bit. I ran it through just part of my Cursor and Windsurf free trials. I was like, well, let's do this. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty impressive. It was the things I've seen on social media with this model is that it's really good at more broader scope ideas. So
cool.
Telling it to like generate a whole website or in my case, what I threw at it was I said, generate a 3D racing game that runs in the browser. And it totally did it. And then I said, I need AI cars. It built those. It had the AI cars racing around. I had keyboard shortcuts. They all worked. I didn't write a single line of code. And I'm just going through with this like 3D racing game.
Wow.
And I was pretty impressed by it, honestly. It's the sort of thing that previous models could totally do, but it just seems like the scope of what is possible with this is pretty impressive, at least for the couple of hours I had testing this out. I also had it generate some full like marketing sites. I said, look at the content of this. I pointed it at the note card, which is a product we make at Blues. Said, here's its marketing site. Generate me a page based using the content based off that. And it generated something that looked pretty darn good, just like one-shot it.
Wow.
Just one command and built a whole marketing page with Tailwind and Shad CN, and it looked pretty decent.
That's awesome. Nice.
That's impressive. Yeah.
It's good to see that kind of expansion in the AI space, and I like that. It's funny. I was reading a book recently on like slow and fast thinking, and what this kind of demonstrates is like the power of slow thinking. Like, and the fast thinking is like that kind of gut reaction. Ooh, I don't like that, or I like that sort of thing. But it's often incredibly shallow. Where slow thinking is, I've had a little time to think about this, and I've come to a different conclusion, which happens not infrequently. And we're seeing this similar sort of thing with AI, which is you give it a little time to percolate on it and think about it, and it gets better results.
They cite that exact thing in their blog post as why they have two different modes. That's why they have like the standard mode, which is supposed to be the fast thinking for simpler questions, and then the thinking mode, extended thinking mode, for really delving into harder questions. So they really are trying to replicate human intelligence essentially by doing this.
And it's fun to see it reason. Like you get the whole like self-reflection thing. Oh, they're asking for this, but maybe they want that instead. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right.
I wonder how much quicker you will go through your token allotment if you're using reasoning mode as opposed to quick thinking mode.
So decently fast, I can tell you, because segues nicely into their second announcement, where I actually did give them some money to test, is Claude Code. And Claude Code is a terminal-based tool that basically you install it through a terminal, you run it through a Claude command, and then when you do it, it prompts you for a couple different instructions. So you basically navigate to your repo, you run Claude, and it'll prompt you and say, okay, you can run /init, and that'll create a Claude markdown file with instructions you can pass to Claude. So these are similar to cursor rules or like anything to like prime the model on like what your repo is, some instructions for it.
Yeah.
And then you operate it just like any of these other tools we've been using. So you can also ask it questions about the code base. What is this? What does this do? Where can I find the files that do this? Or you can ask it to just do things as well and say, implement this new page that does this, or re-architect this part of the system, and it'll just do it for you. And so it's essentially like what Cursor and Windsurf provide in terms of AI tooling, but from the terminal, and just using Claude and using Claude credits as well. So you have to go to Claude's website. Yeah. They prompt you for a credit card very quickly when you go to use this, because you can't there's no free trial mode. You just have to give them money to try it out. And when I tested it, so to get back at your question, because I tried it out I gave it $5 real quick just for science, right? And I went through those $5 in like I don't know, like 45 minutes of playing around,
Wow.
30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
So I went through it pretty darn quickly. I was using it pretty heavily. So I was also doing this when I was trying out to build marketing pages.
Sure.
So I was asking it to do some things. They also talk about how you can limit it through the API in terms of how you can kind of put constraints so this thing doesn't go crazy. Because I asked it to do some ambitious things and it was thinking a long time. And I'm pretty sure that's what just churned through my credits really, really quickly. But you can put limits on it just in case you're not trying to generate an enormous amount of code. But it can get pricey is the short answer to your question. So it's powerful, but with great power comes great cost, it seems.
Yeah, great bills.
Even
Yes.
starting it up for me actually cost it was a fraction of a cent. It was like 0.00039 or something like that cents. But it was like, I didn't do anything,
Yeah.
And then later on, I asked it to do something, and it was like 30 cents to go and refactor something. Geez, I don't know. That's high. That seems high to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, it can do some cool things.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think if you're building out a little demo or a one-off type of thing, this seems very useful for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because the amount of time it would have taken me to build some of those starting points would have been immense. Would it be useful on an existing large production app? That's a little bit more questionable and something I haven't tested out quite yet.
Probably depends a lot on the quality of that Claude file,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I was just thinking about, thought you were going to say the quality of the code base.
Well,
Because
that
those
too.
things can
Yeah.
get just massive and unwieldy really fast if they've been around for a while. But yeah, you're right. The quality of the Claude file too.
Yeah, because otherwise it's kind of everybody's got apps that have this weird way that we do this weird thing kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if it needs to refigure that out every time, that's going to cost you a lot of money. If you put that in the Claude configuration file where it's hey, this is how we do, I don't know, mocking for testing or whatever,
Right.
that's going to be
Yeah.
a lot faster.
Good point.
I feel just general coding day in, day out, I feel like most of the things we do are more fast thinking. I just need help with this syntax or this individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you often, just as part of your usual workflow, are let's massively re-architect this or
Right.
generate a whole new thing. Maybe you do if you work on cooler things than I do, but
Yeah.
I feel like it
gets back to that whole snacking thing. If you let it do snacking tasks, where it's just change this color or whatever, or, make this button roundier, that kind of thing. That's just tab completion type stuff, But if you want to refactor this into an entirely different module, put in the slow mode, because otherwise you're going to
Let
get
it think about it.
awful results. Yeah.
They do talk about how Claude Code is an agentic tool because of course they do. So I think their vision for it is kind of I can set it off on tasks since you can just sort of prompt it to do things and check back on it. So we'll see what becomes of that. It's interesting that they're choosing to do this from the terminal because to me, doing it from the editor is just far more intuitive to have I'm sending in the editor, I'm sending the questions in a way that I can easily just view the code.
Yeah.
And from the terminal, it's a little bit harder. Obviously, there are terminal-based tools for doing that, but I find just the editor is far more engaging for that sort of thing. But it's interesting that they're giving this a go.
Yeah. Unique take on it.
It's probably a first pass, and once they get some feedback that users like this or Claude Code works well, then maybe they'll do a GUI on top of it or a plugin for VS Code or something where it's easier to visualize the changes that are being made than just, scrolling through lines of text.
I think they're realizing, though, that they're taking off in coding circles because it's funny how in their blog post they had quotes from Cursor and Vercel, which, if you think about it, Claude is a general AI tool. It's not. It's for everybody to use. And the fact that they're getting quotes from Vercel and Cursor is indicative of they know kind of where their current audience is. Mm-hmm. And if you go to Claude's AI, just their web app, similar to just going to ChatGPT, if you go to their web app, there's now a GitHub option there. So you can give it,
Wow.
Okay.
You can connect to your GitHub account and tell it to use that as look at this repo for context of the question I'm about to ask you.
Smart.
And again, this is on just Claude's general site. This is not like coding specific. It's just, I think they're realizing that us is a big part of their audience at this point.
And they're willing to do testing on us by giving us a Claude CLI, but weirdly, it's not free. So not only do we have to, are we the guinea pigs, we also have to pay for the privilege of being a guinea pig. I love it. Fantastic. Make money coming and going.
No free trial either.
No.
So you can't even you got to bust out your credit card to even try the thing.
Yeah,
so
that's okay. I mean,
but if you want to try Claude 3.7, honestly, if you haven't done a Cursor or Windsurf free trial, they both have those models in them. In fact, Cursor had it immediately. I feel like since they were quoted in the blog post, they probably knew this was coming. So you can try out Claude 7 through either of those tools as part of a free trial and get some usage that way.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Well, my news this week is actually kind of a follow-up on my news from last week. So TANstack Start, our TANstack, had released last week a update to, a new package actually for Solid Router. So now there is the TANstack router for React, and then now there's the the TANstack router for Solid, and they both have a similar API surface between the two of them. So that's actually really cool just on its own. And as part of that, we released a new version of that create-tsrouter-app package that I worked on that originally, and I worked this as well. And so now, number one, you can go and create solid apps just as easily as you can create React apps, and by just getting it -- framework solid, and you get a solid app as opposed to the React app. So if you're interested in learning solid, that is a really fun way to try that out and to kind of see the differences between React app and a solid app. And it gives you that neat spinny solid logo as opposed to the neat spinny React logo, which is fun. And then the second thing that we added was a support for this thing called add-ons. So you can add on the add-ons flag, and that enables add-ons mode. It's in alpha currently, but there are a bunch of different add-ons that you can add into your app as you're creating it, including things like Sentry and Netlify deployments and TANstack query if you just want React query, and also you can upgrade to Start if you want. So it's a nice way to just kind of say, ooh, I don't just want the stock boilerplate. I'm actually interested in a bunch of these extra things like state management and all that, and it'll give you that as well. And those add-ons, there are often equivalents for Solid and also React. So you can get TANstack query on Solid if you want to see how that works. There's also module federation in there if you're interested in micro front ends, so it's an easy way to start out with that. And then the third thing we added was MCP support. So for AI stuff inside of your Cursor, you can actually run it as an MCP server, and then you can ask your Cursor or your Windsurf to make you a TANstack app, and it'll use our tool to make that for you.
It's good stuff. I gave it a shot this week for the first time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it totally worked. I have not tried any of this new stuff, so I have not tried add-ons, but I can definitely see the usefulness because that's just a nice one-liner to add in the stuff I need so I don't have to install it myself.
Yeah. And it's funny, I just don't really understand, we have still CRA. You can still run it, but people are learning that it's deprecated, and it tells you that it's deprecated. And yet none of the biggies have come out with any kind of response to say, oh, well, here you go. Here's something that functionally works the same way, so you can keep your tutorials and keep on doing what you were doing before. But, I don't know why they didn't do it. It's weird.
Oh, it's nostalgic because you did replicate the same screen.
Yeah, right? With the spinny React logo and the whole thing. Although we put that TANstack circle right in the middle of it to kind of it's subtle, it's TANstack.
Yeah, it's a nice homage to the original, but just put your own touch on it.
Yeah. And of course you can do
today.
Yeah. And speaking of updated for today, you can do -- Tailwind and get Tailwind v4. And you can also ask for shadcn. So it's a real nice way. If you want to just start up an app and you're going to use things like shadcn and Tailwind, it's a one-liner, which is great.
Yeah. Cool. And it's a lot more lightweight than creating a new Next.js app if you don't need the server side everything that Next.js provides.
Yeah, tell me about it. All right. Well, do we have any bonus news this week?
We do. So I wanted to give it an update. So Paige last week covered Bolt and Expo and the integration they had for building mobile apps out. And I said I would try it, so I did try it.
All right.
And
it worked like a charm, right?
I did get a few answers, so I was wondering how you actually test this thing. And the answer is, so when you go into Bolt, you get their interface where essentially it looks like any other AI tool you're describing. You're typing out, I want a mobile app that acts as a resume and has these tabs or whatever.
Right.
Sure.
And then what happens is you see the chat on the left-hand side and then the app and the code on the right-hand side. The interface is actually really slick. And then after it builds it, it gives you a QR code to scan. And you scan it on the Expo Go app on your iOS or Android device. Mm-hmm. And so the way you test it is you're just using your own personal device. The only limitation of that is that there are certain things you can't do in an app unless you install the app yourself. Meaning, like, typically if you're working with different types of plugins or settings, or there's certain things you need to do in your app, you do need to actually like compile and install the app. So those things aren't going to work. But for like a first step and like easy testing experience, this is still really, really cool. Mm-hmm. The only downside is it did not work for me at all. So
well, and then there's that. It straight up just didn't work. But okay, it's great otherwise.
So to try to give it a good faith effort, I tried it twice because I tried it the day we recorded because I was just curious, and we recorded last week. So I went in and I tried it. I got some errors, like error executing JavaScript bundle or something like that. And I would never see anything on my phone. So it would look like it would scan it, it would just spinner, and I just got some weird errors. And then I tried it again yesterday just to give them another go. And I got another set of weird errors that I was getting, like font errors. And it's weird because it looked like it worked because I could see that it generated code. I had code in there, but it just could not make that connection to my mobile device. I don't know if the problem was on the Bolt side or the Expo side, but I don't know. It's a new thing, right? So I'm going to give them some leeway because I think what they're doing is cooler than I initially thought it was, because it does look pretty slick if you just need a simple mobile app. It looks like a really kind of interesting way of building it, but I think they just need to work the kinks out a little bit.
I'm genuinely surprised. Expo has been, for me in the past, pretty stable, at least when it comes to like building new apps. Like it just seems to just work usually. I'm really surprised.
Yeah, it might have just been something I was doing. It's hard to say. I did switch because I was doing it in Firefox and I switched to Chrome because I was like, well, maybe this is, but no, it didn't work in Chrome either.
No.
So crazy.
Well, yeah, we'll give it some time. I'm sure, like you said, they're debugging and probably getting tons of user feedback. So it can only get better, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty ambitious what they're trying to do because you're describing to an AI a thing. It's building code. They're building a way to show the code on the side and also a device preview that can send to your mobile device. So it's pretty ambitious, and I'm sure they have some work to do to get the kinks worked out, and hopefully they'll fix that up.
Yeah, the QR code scanning to get it onto your actual mobile device, that's pretty sweet. I like that. It takes away that difficulty that we all have with mobile, which is like you're in Polypane or you're in Browser Stack and you're trying to emulate something and it just never is the same.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that whole stuff about provisioning profiles. Oh no. Hate that stuff. Ugh. All right. Well, I have some bonus news.
Yeah.
So React Scan 0.2 came out. So React Scan is a really cool utility from a friend of mine, Aiden Bai. He actually also is in the Portland area, and it's great. So you install this thing. It's literally like a one-liner add to your React application, and it's got awesome debugging tools when it comes to figuring out if stuff is over-rendering, like rendering too much. You can actually click on a component, and when it re-renders, it'll tell you why it re-rendered, like what hook changed, what the values changed. Really cool. So if you're getting things that are over-rendering, you can I didn't expect that hook to be firing. It actually was. And then also it'll tell you if a component is slow. So if you are navigating around and your FPS suddenly drops, then it'll give you a little like notification thing, alert, hey, your it dropped here, and then it'll give you some metrics about, well, actually the rendering took a lot of time in this area, and even cooler, it'll actually give you like a GPT kind of synopsis of what it found. So you can then go and take that, copy that, and put that into GPT, and maybe GPT can actually help you like figure it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I've got some more news to tack on. I don't know when Aiden sleeps because he's also come out with a new tool called React Explorer. And I mean, this just came out. And what it does is it gives you a URL box. So you put in a React website. You could do like the React docs, or I did one of our websites, dev.blues.io, because it's built with Next. And it renders out a visualization of the component tree. And I'm not quite sure what the value is, because when I looked at it, it's just a whole bunch of nodes and like endpoints and stuff like that. But it could be useful for somebody. Maybe I'm just not a visual person in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a neat visualization. And like we were talking about before the show started recording, sometimes it's just fun to see what comes out and kind of thrash around with it and click on different things and just see what's there. I mean, boy, there's a lot of stuff in that website, I will tell you. There's blog posts and components and just random stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see this web of stuff just in a visual form. But yeah.
Kind of interesting, but useful?
I don't
know.
This reminds me of when I tried out Volt, the like NPM competitor Volt for installing packages. And one of their features was different ways of visualizing your dependencies. And I ran it and I saw my dependencies visualized. And my first thought was, oh, that's cool. And then my second thought was, okay, like what?
Right?
Like,
yeah.
What do I actually do with this? I mean, it looked cool. So.
Yeah, that Spring Graph stuff, I mean, it's in D3 and it's in a bunch of these data visualization libraries. And I think it's like the coolest and potentially least actually information like, passing kind of, utility. Because you're like, well, that's really cool. It does these like effects where it kind of boom, blows out. And then like, you can actually like drag a node and like roll it around, and the whole graph adjusts, and you're like, well, that's really cool, but like, did I learn anything?
Right.
I don't think so. Yeah.
That's why I think React Scan is so useful, because it's actually actionable. Something. It's not just like doing something just to do it. It's you're getting actual useful, like, oh, that's the problem and I can address it, versus just some complicated graph.
Yeah. I should have a chat with that about that. Like maybe like adding like a search function to it, where you could like have it so that you can type in the component that you're interested in, and it would just show that one and its connections. That can be interesting. Otherwise, it's just completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Maybe more bonus news?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, we don't have a fire starter this week, so that leaves us with what is making us happy this week.
Woo.
Woo! All right, since we started off with Paige, let's go to TJ for what's making him happy this week.
Claude Plays Pokemon is making me happy this week. So
more AI.
I was researching Claude, right, as for this episode to cover Claude Code and Claude 3.7. And I stumbled upon, because they sent this out from their official X account, that one of the people on their team is just sort of a side project, was teaching Claude how to play the original Pokemon Red and Blue video games.
Nice.
And that Claude 3.5 could only make it through the first, in the original Pokemon games, they're divided into, you get gym badges. You get 8 gym badges, and then you go to the final, whatever. It's divided into gym badges. But anyways, the original Claude model could only get 1 gym badge, and apparently Claude 3.7 was now up to getting 3 gym badges. But what's interesting about this is that they put this out on Twitch. So you can look up Claude Plays Pokemon on Twitch, and you can watch. So it'll show a Claude window on the left-hand side, and then a stream of the game on the right-hand side. And you can watch Claude. It basically, the way it works is it reads an image of the screen. It's got a way of like reading what it sees.
Wow.
So it gets sent that as input. And then what it was told, it's basically its direction at the start of the game is it's told about its environment. Here are the buttons that are available, what you can push. Your objective is to get all 8 gym badges and defeat the game. And then from there, it's kind of up on its own. So it takes all this in as input, and then its only output, it's told you're only to output button presses. So press up, press A, press B. And as you can imagine, it goes quite slowly because it like reads the screen and it's like, oh, I think I need to go up there. So it'll send button press up. And then you'll watch the character move up. And then you'll wait, the model will take another thing. It'll go through this again. And it goes slowly, but what makes it fun is that having it on Twitch and the chat experience through it is just amusing to pop in on every once in a while, especially for someone like me that's familiar with the Pokemon games, because you can know, like, you're seeing the AI go here, and all it has to do is go through a door. Something that,
like, come on.
Yeah, like any human would say in a second, like, you just have to go through the door. It's quite obvious. But you'll see Claude, like, try to go in different, like, it'll start towards the door, and then you'll see it, like, take a turn, and then everybody in chat will be like, no, Claude, no, just go up.
I just imagine like there's some like kid that lives next to a power plant, like a hydro plant in some like rural area, and the lights are flickering, and it's like, Mommy, why are the lights flickering again? And it's like, oh, Claude's playing Pokemon again. Like, is this really what we want to spend our energy on? Really?
Well,
our computing time. Yeah.
Really?
Well, especially like we've discussed earlier, like it's clearly using their thinking model.
Oh my God. Oh.
And to our point earlier, it's not the cheapest thing to run. So you'd have to think the cost of running this around the clock has got to be non-trivial. Yeah. But maybe they figure it's a good marketing expense. I mean, they got
definitely.
interested in Claude, and it's funny to see, again, like the Twitch chat experience, because you'll see people rooting for it, because the chat will start, when it does something right, the chat will start chanting AGI, like AGI with exclamation marks.
Of course.
I don't know. It's stupid, but it made me happy. Yeah. I don't know. It was just kind of fun to poke in on. And every once in a while, I'll pop in to see how it's doing. It's currently been stuck in the same cave for over 24 hours as we record this.
Poor Claude.
So maybe this might be the end of Claude's run, but I don't know. I'll let you know, because I check in on it every once in a while.
Oh my God.
Boy, I would love to see the bill if it was somebody who didn't work at Anthropic running this, just to see how much money it has spent.
Right. I made millions on my Apple stock, but I blew it all on making a Claude Pokemon thing. Claude's over in the corner. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Paige, what you got?
I have the Breville Infizz Aqua this week, which is another kitchen gadget.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
You never knew you needed. So I drink a lot of bubbled water, carbonated water. I've gotten really, not so much the flavored stuff. I just really like straight carbonation.
Okay.
And so my husband and I bought a SodaStream probably like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, everybody's buying SodaStreams back then. It was like a thing.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of cans and we went through a lot of bottles and just felt like we could probably spend less money on our carbonation habit. So we got a SodaStream. It lasted for a good while, and then its seal started to go. So we bought a new one, and this one now a lot of people make them. So this is a Breville instead. SodaStream is still around. There's a bunch of other new ones that have popped up since then, but this Breville Infizz Aqua is nicer than I think a lot of the other options because it's stainless steel, so it's not plastic. It just looks really good. It fits under our cabinets on the counter, which was the same as the SodaStream that we had, so I didn't have to like take up more counter space or put it somewhere else. And so far it's been really good. It's even easier to use. You just press down on this little handle on the top, and it automatically releases when it's done its maximum carbonation. And it's very easy to put the bottles in, take them out again, and you can even customize how much bubbles you want. You just keep pressing the handle, and you can really, really bubble it if you prefer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about two handle presses is good for us, but you can do like 4 or 6 or whatever. So yeah, we've had it for about 2-3 weeks now, and so far it's been really good. Really liking it.
Nice. All right. Well, what's making me happy this week is another YouTube channel called Adrian's Digital Basement. And Adrian is another PNW guy, actually. He's over in St. John's, which is just up north from me. Very cute community, really nice. Like the St. John's Bridge is iconic and all that. But what Adrian does is he is a old school digital enthusiast. Like he knows everything about boards and electronics. And so what he does is he basically rebuilds like old Nintendo machines, old Apple II pluses, old PCs and things. And it's amazing the work that he does to get these things back and going. Like sometimes like the battery will have melted onto the motherboard and broken a lot of the traces. Other times like the capacitors have blown and things. And he goes through excruciating details. He's unsoldering all this stuff and putting it back together. And it's just, he takes such delight when things actually like finally work. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it's finally working. And it's just great to see. I mean, I don't know why I can spend hours kind of in the background like watching him futz with this stuff, but it's just really fun to see.
So it sounds like he's like an old school electrical engineer if he's soldering and putting this stuff together.
Yeah, doing bodge wires. I didn't even know what a bodge wire was, but I'm actually like, the reason I got into it was I was doing some electronic stuff for myself, a very small scale, and of course YouTube is like, ooh, well, you're just in electronics. You're like, what about this guy?
Yeah, and
I'm like, wow, actually, like it's really fun to see him like literally open up this box from our viewer that's like something that's in I mean, sometimes the literal barn, like there's like, whatever, like stuff coming out of the computer and stuff, needs to be like deep cleaned and things. And he finds a way to make it work, which is really cool.
It's hard to find somebody that's good at that sort of stuff and is also good at video, because that sort of stuff is, as someone who does that sort of thing on a significantly simpler scale, it can be hard to be a videographer in that role, to capture everything, to get your lighting right. Mm-hmm. So I'll have to check this out, if only just curiosity about that sort of thing.
He'll go into the random stuff that he's done offline or off video, or when he's like had microphone troubles and stuff like that. He's got like a whole bunch of stuff recording him all the time when he's doing this. And so, yeah, I can imagine the editing is non-trivial to put that all together. But he really just enjoys it, and he's been doing it for a while.
Very cool.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. So, again, go check out our YouTube channel. It's really fun. You get to see us doing our thing. And subscribe today. Get us over the 100 subscriber mark. That'd be awesome. Go subscribe to our podcast as well. Hopefully you're listening to that right now and you're subscribed. We certainly appreciate that. And also go over to our website. Got one of those, friendandfire.com. And also go to our Discord channel, our Discord server, sign up. It's a Blue Collar Coder Discord server, but it's the Friend and Fire channel on there, and you can have a chat with us. We always love to talk to folks and get their feedback.
Yeah, and since we have the YouTube channel now, comments are always appreciated as well. We've gotten a couple things that came up in our survey was more requests for listener involvement in the show. Mm-hmm. And so, giving us comments, letting us know what you think, telling us when we're wrong. We do get things wrong that we like to correct on here, that sort of thing. But we really benefit from that too, because we don't have the experience that all of you have, because we're only 3 people. So if you can share some of the experience you have with some of the tools that you use, we can help incorporate that into the show and pass it along to others too.
Absolutely. Yeah. More viewer engagement always helps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
See you then.